there's a lot of themes going on, like,
right. But I think that
taking chances and, living your life to the fullest. And that's what the movie's about. It's not a plot, it's a theme.
Hello, and welcome to Filling in the Gaps. I'm Justin.
I'm Darren.
Today we're going to talk about a movie called Mind Game. This one is from 2004. It is a Japanese animated film. I bring that up because there are many movies that are of a similar name, so it's probably very easy to find the wrong one. This one was recommended to us on I believe it's on our Steam page, as something we might want to check out. Ratings, fairly good. IMDb is 7.8. That's fairly solid. Metascore of 66 with only 6 reviews. That can be pretty much just shoved aside. But the Rotten Tomatoes score is the one that I really want to point out, because this one is critics at 100%.
Wow.
Now, there are only 10 reviews for it, so they consider that as being not enough to really say, but that means that pretty much all 10 probably said this is worth watching.
Mm-hmm.
Audience, 93%, and there are over 3,300 people who gave that the review. So there's something to this. It's a little shocking to me because this movie is not for everybody. I am kind of assuming that all the people who went into this review knew what they were getting into, and this is the type of thing they like.
I think the guy that made this as well, he's quite famous for his art style and his stories. I've not seen any of his other movies. I went into this completely blind.
Let's talk about that, because there are 2 directors listed on IMDb. One is Koji Morimoto. He's done segments for Robot Carnival, Memories, and The Animatrix.
That would make sense.
The director, too, was, again, pronunciation, I apologize, Masaki Yuasa, who did an Adventure Time episode.
Okay.
Food Chain.
Oh, he did Food Chain.
He did the remake of Devilman Crybaby that's on Netflix. And he's also a recent one that I haven't checked out yet called Japan Sinks 2020. That is also a Netflix thing. So apparently he's gotten into Netflix. You may not know they're directing, but they have been animating on some stuff that I know you've seen, like Akira.
Okay.
Like some Studio Ghibli films. They've been on those crews, but as far as directing, they've done others. Those are just the names that I recognize.
Sure.
When it comes to this movie, I'm not sure how to recommend it, or even if I would. It is animated, but the style is very incongruous. It's very different all the way through.
It's very choppy, yeah.
It is, let's label it, not safe for work. And in fact, this episode that we're going to make is going to have to be, because some of the things that happen, we're going to have to talk about, or it won't make any sense.
Right.
And I don't think you will have as much fun if I censor you out from some of the stuff that I know you're going to want to talk about. There is one, I guess, if you need a trigger warning, a kind of rough sexual scene that I think that if you need that warning, there it is.
But then, which is also then followed by one of the greatest sex scenes ever.
Well, I'm definitely going to disagree on that one. I don't know what to say about this movie. I will say this is one of the rare times where I think you listening to us might actually inspire you to want to watch it more than if we just tell you to go watch it. And I'm not sure how much we're giving away, because the story is also very kind of incongruous. And when we get to the end, there's something about that as well. I don't want to say anything about it now, but it doesn't really matter. So if you are not sure you want to watch this, if you want to hear just some of the craziness that goes on in this movie, then this is one of the few times I'm going to say, I'm really not worried about spoilers, but here is your spoiler warning, just in case.
Yeah.
Let's get into this movie. So, it's insane.
It's mad, man.
Like, it's an hour and 43 minutes of just craziness.
Yeah, it's like taking drugs and watching it unfold in front of your eyes. I'm glad that someone recommended this to me, because I like this movie. Did you like it?
Zero surprise you like this movie. This is exactly your kind of movie. Did I like it? Not really. Not overall. I respect parts of it. I think that it is definitely original.
Mm-hmm.
And I will give it that. And I'm always up for an original experience. But I think that for me, the real indicator of do I like something when it comes to a movie is, do I want to recommend it to people? Do I want to watch it again? And to both of those, it's pretty much a no.
That's definitely a yes for me then, yeah.
The recommendations would have to go to people I know have seen other similar types of movies or similar crazy types of animation and enjoyed them. There are some bits of really good animation that happen here and some that are a whole style that just isn't my style. But for other people, they like it. It reminds me, the majority of it reminds me a bit of that cartoon about the really rude kid, Jonggu.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Shinchan Jonggu. He's that shaky, no shading, very flat. I mean, that feels to me to be the majority of what's going on here. It's not my style. So it's already kind of a hard sell to begin with. And then the story itself is absolutely bonkers.
I mean, what there is of a story, I mean, the plot is very, very thin. I mean...
Yes, and that's a problem for me. I like plot. I like to be able to follow the story. I like to know what's going on. But is this worth a Gaps episode? Yes. I mean, that's why we're here. It's pretty crazy. Let's try to put it together. Honestly, do you want to take the lead on this? Because you love this one, or you at least really, really enjoyed it. And I see that you have very organized, typed notes today.
Just because when I was watching it, I could screen it over there and then type it rather than take my eyes off the screen to write something down, you know?
This movie took me 3 hours to watch because I stopped to take notes.
Yeah.
All the time. There's an opening...
I couldn't stop watching it, that's the thing.
I nearly did that, so start watching it. The very beginning is very important.
There's so much happening. That opening is that's a hell of an opening.
Okay, but before that, there's the two men sitting in the car. We're looking out through the windshield.
Right.
It's raining. There's a super tall soccer guy who we're going to find out is called Atsu. He's chasing this young woman onto the subway. She almost makes it into the train, but doesn't. Her foot gets caught. And, of course, her skirt has to fly up, revealing her underwear. And this causes a delay in the train, so the soccer man makes it on board.
Yeah.
This is where things lead into what you were talking about. An absolutely ridiculous, super fast-paced montage that...
It's 3 minutes long of just, flashing images, basically. It's impossible to follow.
Many things relate to other things you're going to see later in the movie.
Sure.
You don't really know that. At this point, I started to think, is this going to be the whole movie? So I started taking a whole lot of notes about this montage. And then I nearly stopped taking notes. And I was just going to watch it once and then come back so that I wouldn't have to be watching it constantly. I typically, with a first time through, I want to be watching everything anyway so that I don't miss anything. But in particular, when it's subtitled and I have to read the subtitles, I need to be watching the whole time. That does slow things down a bit. There's also no stopping in this movie. Well, there's some musical numbers you can kind of rush through, but for the most part, every 5 seconds somebody is saying something, or something is happening, or there's something weird going on the screen. So there's just not a lot of time to take notes while you're watching. But I just paused and paused and paused and paused. But when it came to montages, I gave up. After about the first minute of this one, I went, well, I'm done with that. I'm not going to write down everything. They do connect, and that would be possibly an interesting thing for you to do. I'm not interested in doing that. I know that it's there. There are definitely some things like the cartoonish time reversal superhero that, cartoon, even in this world, comes from a cartoon, is very important and is, to be honest, in my opinion, very much a kind of crux of the whole what story we're given.
Yeah.
So that's important. Some of the characters and events happen later or are related to characters we see later. But I don't care enough to want to go through piece by piece and put them all together. Did you?
The thing is, I just basically watched this and then I would stop it occasionally to take a bunch of notes or if something really important happened. But I knew after the first 3 minutes, this is a kind of movie that I need to just let it wash over me. So I didn't really, but by the end of it, again, I've noticed a few things. There's definitely a lot of stuff you could unpack from that opening, because that opening is also the ending as well. It's almost the same.
It's changed. Yeah. So just beware of that. The montages have some similar clips, but are very different, and I think that that's important. Yeah. But I think that we need to get to that when we get to the second montage.
Things like the can that she picks up out of the thing, it's got this little kind of weird red hearts on it. It almost looks like jellyfish. That design that's on the can is kind of the Yakuza's car keychain as well. There's little things everything is, like you said, everything is kind of intertwined, linked up somehow. But to me, usually I'd be all over that, trying to thread things together. But not for this. I think this movie just is what it is. It's definitely not a plot-driven movie. It's just an experience-driven movie. And that's what I wanted to do, was just experience it.
I think that's why I'm not as interested in connecting all the bits, because it's not really important to the plot.
It's not, yeah.
Well, I mean, we're in the spoiler section, right? So the plot isn't important because the plot gets rewritten.
Yeah.
A couple times, I think.
I mean, there basically is no plot. What would you say the plot is? The plot is a guy...
That's a great plot, yeah.
A guy has a second go at life and lives it differently. That's it. That's pretty much the plot. There's a lot of themes going on,
right. But I think that
taking chances and living your life to the fullest, and that's what the movie's about. It's not a plot. It's a theme.
But I think I could buy that. I could buy that it's a theme, or in this case, I think multiple themes that are happening. But I think that the opening part does have a plot, and that it does connect because it comes back around again. The plot is a whole... I'm not going to spoil it, but if you've seen the movie Sliding Doors, then you know kind of what's going on here. It's a very similar theme, a similar storytelling mechanic that they're doing, but you don't know that until the end in this one, whereas Sliding Doors kind of makes it much more apparent as to what's going on. In this movie, we're going to see Nishi and Mian. They had a crush on each other as children. They started sending each other notes, and then she started dating other guys. But here they are. I guess they just happened to meet again on this subway train.
Mm-hmm.
And she's saying things like, "Oh, you didn't know I lived so close to you all this time. I live with my sister." They end up going to the restaurant, and the restaurant is a key scene. So in the restaurant, we get to meet her sister, Jan, and their father, who is not a very nice guy.
No.
He basically...
just brags about all the women he slept with.
Yes.
Because to his own daughter. Come on.
Nishi is planning to become a comic artist in Tokyo, and that's what brings that up. Oh, Tokyo, so many beautiful women. I had women here and women there, and he's also now, we know, with a younger woman as well, who Jan says is about the same age as her. And he also mentions that Mian used to write about Nishi all the time, and her feelings, I guess in her diary or something.
Yeah, I guess so.
I don't know where she would be writing it down that the dad would technically be able to read it. So I'm assuming he snuck in and read their diary. Nishi, he does a lot of this. This is something about the Japanese animation style that I don't really like. These overly emphatic speeches. He does it all the time, throughout this movie, and saying, "Oh, you shouldn't be so terrible because I love the Uchida family women, and you're a terrible man." It's just too much. It's just too much. But the whole time, so on the way here, Nishi's making really inappropriate statements to Mian. I don't know why she's friends with this guy. And they've cut the scene of, what if I got married? I know I'm young, but what if I got married? We assume they're about 20, based on some of the context we've been given. And so in the restaurant, we'll enter her boyfriend, who's just a truck driver, but he's a really handsome guy.
Big buff guy with his full head of hair.
And
I'm not jealous.
Nishi has hair too, though, so that's not his issue, yeah. But Nishi is very jealous of him. You get all these... This is part of what frustrates me about this movie, is it's very difficult to know what is supposed to be real and what is supposed to be imaginary. And there are many times where he says things, or he imagined things, and then they're taken back. They're taken away from us. So add that with time reversal, and it's... Yeah, that's part of why the plot part of this movie just doesn't work for me.
But to be fair, the time reversal thing happens twice in the whole movie, though. It's not something that is...
It does, but if it erases the entire movie I just saw...
Yeah, well, but that is the entire movie you just saw. That's the whole point of it. is that different decisions and different encounters and have different consequences. That's it.
You're not going to sell me.
I'm not trying to sell it to you. I'm just saying that's what it is.
I mean, that may be what it is, but that's not going to make me enjoy it anymore. The thing is, I spent an hour and a half watching a movie that got erased. Yeah, but you to be erased again like 10 minutes later.
But you had I had a good time watching it. The getting there was what was fun. Yeah, the part in the whale was very interesting.
All right, let's get through it. Let's get through it. So,
was good.
The restaurant. In walks the soccer guy and the other guy. I guess they're tied to the Yakuza in some way.
Yeah.
The one guy, I never learned his name. I just always called him Atsu's partner because he's just there. I'm sure in the IMDb page it's there somewhere, but we so rarely get names that it's really hard to match up even with that. Things are going to get ridiculously out of hand. Apparently, the father stole or took. Somehow he got the World Cup tickets.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And that's why the soccer guy is really mad.
Who's like a real soccer guy.
Yes, but not a player?
He's a player.
For the World Cup?
Because he says he's like the Maradona of Osaka or something like that.
I think he was that.
He was. He's not anymore.
He's not now.
No.
He was a real soccer guy, but he is not anymore.
So now he's just this big, beefy psycho that really wants to see the World Cup, like really badly.
The father hides. The sister, Yan, she tries to cover. Oh, he's not here. I think he went away for a couple of days. Things are going to get ridiculously out of hand. Atsu is... Well, the dad has also taken his girlfriend away, which was... I've got her name down here somewhere, but yeah, Riko. He took her away as well. So the dad's done this guy twice.
So maybe that's the girl that they were talking about earlier on then. Is that who he was talking about? Who the daughter was talking about earlier? Like, he's got this girlfriend, she's the same age as me. Right, yes. Okay, I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah.
So he's done a double then, yeah.
To this guy, yes. And so Atsu goes crazy. He knocks out Mian's boyfriend and says something like, oh, he should have stayed awake because he'll understand the pain I'm about to put him through.
Yeah.
He's just a terrible, terrible person.
Yeah.
He starts ripping Mian's clothes. We know what he's leading up to.
Yeah.
But because she says something to Nishi, like, are you there?
Yeah.
Atsu finds him curled up in a ball on the floor and
sticks the gun up his ass
and shoots him and kills him. Right. Just as Nishi was saying, like, I'm going to hurt you.
Yeah. Right through the butt, out the top of his head. Yeah.
Yes. Then we get the afterlife, sort of, what there is of it. We're meant to believe this is God, the ever-changing character.
I like this. I like this idea. This is probably a really awesome way to represent God. Because, like, he's just looking at him, and it's like his mind is so screwed just by looking at God that he can't actually see him for what he really is. So he's like, at one point, he's a fish smoking a cigarette. At the next moment, he's like this weird guy with a massive beard. Then he's something else. It's basically like the infinite probability drive from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Just constantly going through all these weird changes. But yeah, this part was cool, and we find out that God is also an...
If that's who it really is. At least in English subtitles says something like, are you God? And the other character says, yeah, if that's what you want. You know, but there was something very non-committal to it.
Yeah.
Like, I've got a date, which is also very weird. So if you'll just go through the red portal...
And just fade out of existence.
That would be great. Nishi's not going to do that. He's going to run back the other way through the blue one and have to keep his mind focused as God turns into a cheetah or something and is telling Nishi, you can't do it. It's not possible.
Yeah.
But then he does make it through. And then he's going to change the past because he's not just back into his body, but is back into his body just before he died. So he's going to clench his butt cheeks, flip over with the gun, and kill Atsu.
Yeah, man. Glammo.
Then they're going to take off. They're going to steal the car. Yeah. And leads to a crazy action car chase.
Yeah, a very weird car chase.
The Yakuza are attacking them with a pickaxe and a chainsaw. There are 11 of them that appear immediately, and all the cars are numbered.
Yeah. At one point, the Yakuza falls off onto the road, but he manages to keep running, like Speedy Gonzales.
Nishi is speechifying through the whole thing, like, I'm not going to give up, we can do this. He tries to ramp over one of those car carriers, but can't make it. And he's like, I'm going to do stunt driving, and tries to flip the car on the side to get through, which doesn't work very well.
Cartwheels through it instead.
Everybody gets all bloody.
Yeah.
Leads up to, well, there's the boss of the Yakuza who calls him and explains the situation he's in. There's a trap on the bridge. Nishi is going to basically drive off the side of the bridge. Everybody else is going to get crashed, and there's going to be a giant tsunami that washes over the whole bridge to take care of them anyway.
Yeah. Well, because the giant whale caused it, I guess.
Yes, though it's very unclear at this point that that's what's happening.
Well, you can see its mouth opening. Ooh.
It's very dark, though, and this movie, nothing really makes sense. So even if I saw a clear whale there, I would just assume that it was Nishi's imagination.
Right.
But yeah, there's going to be a whale because that's where our characters are all going to end up.
For pretty much the rest of the movie.
For the majority of it. They are going to be pseudo-rescued by Gramps, I guess we'll call him.
Yep.
Who takes them to his fort that he's made inside the belly of the whale.
Which is amazing. There's a lot of detail in this room. It's when they're panning over it. Didn't write down everything that's in there, but that was such a cool, very detailed. When you're saying that he had a hand in doing some of the animation for Akira, this is like the kind of Akira level of detail that I saw in this room. It's really well drawn and way far more detailed than anything we've seen so far. So I guess if you really wanted to analyze it, there's probably a lot of meaning to this room in the first place. Because, yeah, they've done a lot of weird animations before, and we didn't even mention like the kind of almost live action stuff that
they cut to. I don't like that at all.
That was really weird. I don't mind it. I mean, it's art, so it's like I'll
see.
I'll
that's
roll
the
with
difference. If you're going to look at this as art, it's a very different thing. But for me, an art film is not the same as a movie, which is typically what I want. Mm-hmm. I want there to be a plot. I want there to be something more. There are some interesting visuals, but I think part of the problem is I don't know exactly how it worked, but I suspect, my suspicion anyway, is that they set up different crews of people in their animation department and said, you're doing this section, do it whatever style you want.
Right.
Because that's why we get such disparate ways of things being done. I've seen this before where it can work very well, but this one, it just seems to happen very haphazardly, and there's not really, to me, a reason sometimes for the changeover, like the changeover to the live action real people faces that they've animated, I guess, is to cut in on the emotion, but sometimes it's not really on a good part for that. So I don't know if there's kind of a logic behind their choices that they've done, or if they just did what they thought would look cool in the moment.
I think they definitely put some thought into it, though, because I think that all those live action bits and all the kind of really jarring stuff all comes in the beginning. And then this art style that we're in the belly of the whale, pretty much stays constant throughout the rest of the movie. They don't really change it up that much.
I wouldn't say through the rest of the movie, but I would say for a lot of the whale part is consistent, but there are still moments of...
There's a couple, yeah.
The room is very weird. It's got mannequins, lots of underwear for some reason.
Dirty old man. Once a pervert, always a pervert.
Speaking of which, he offers them a hot bath, which of course the two guys are going to peek in on.
And say that exact line.
What's that?
And say that exact line that I just said. Once a pervert, always a pervert.
Oh, okay. Then there's the dinner where they find out that Gramps is good at making sushi.
Everything, yeah.
And they live inside of a whale, which we will find out. It's much like Pinocchio and...
Job.
I don't know if Job made a whole life going in there, but yes. This part starts to lead into the characters exploring their passions.
Yep.
Mian starts swimming a lot because she had wanted to be a swimmer. They make reference to the fact that her curves got in the way of that. Yan, she's the most frustrating one because she gets into weird dances and
like
art.
Some performance artist. That scene where she's just like dumping buckets of colour over her body and then running at a screen and imprinting her outline, I guess, onto this thing was just like, that went on forever.
Yes. That was a whole song and dance number.
Yeah. And there's like gigantic balloons. And like, is that not the scene where they've got like the bamboos attached? And they're doing like jump rope?
I think it gets to that at the end, yes.
Oh my god, that was absolutely hilarious. I love that. I love that scene, man.
I knew. I knew you would. I was sitting there the whole time going, well, I'm glad Darren at least is going to enjoy this. This is the type of thing. I don't like musical movies.
Yeah, you never have. Even in things like Steven Universe, man, you're always like, oh man, are you going to sing again?
It depends, right? There are some where it works if there's action going on behind it. And then there's the Steven Universe movie, which did not work for me. Okay. It is primarily a musical.
Right, okay.
And that doesn't work for me. If the song can progress the story in some way, perhaps. But for the most part, musicals just don't work for me because we could skip this and it wouldn't make a difference to the plot.
Right.
And that's part of what frustrates me about this. This whole idea of they have time to do what they want to do. Mian is swimming. Ya's doing her art stuff. Despite what I think of it, she's taking the time to follow her passion.
Sure.
Nishi is drawing more and he's enjoying it. Gramps is cooking, I guess.
Yeah.
That idea of we had to run from the Yakuza, we had to run from life, but in doing so, it allowed us to explore what we really want to explore in life and spend each day the way we really want to, leading up to the romance finally happening between Mian and Nishi. That concept is fantastic, and I really love that. But their execution of it is not my style at all. And that dance number and the synchronized swimming and all of that stuff that went into the music number.
The synchronized swimming, no, like you can cut that. with the weird Loch Ness dinosaur thing. Yeah, okay, that's just madness.
It's a great concept, and I will say that about a number of things in this movie. It does do interesting things. The ever-changing appearance of God in the afterlife. The fact that they were saying the afterlife doesn't matter, and they're expecting everybody to just walk to the red portal anyway.
Yeah.
And this concept of if you could remove yourself from the world, what would you do? It's really, really good, but I wasn't enjoying it. You know, I love the idea, but I don't enjoy what's going on here.
I love the love scene as well is quite amazing. That was a really interesting way to do a kind of sex scene, I guess, between...
It was, though I had a huge question mark behind it for a long time because I wasn't sure it was really happening.
Oh, yeah, well...
Because we've seen many things that happen in Nishi's head, but we don't actually have happen in our plotline, in our story. That was another 3-minute long scene. That was a long
one, yeah.
So I think it took until about a minute in before I went, I think maybe it is this time finally.
Even though they've got all this time and they're pursuing their true passions, they still want to go back to the real world where they could possibly be killed by Yakuza.
They do, but they also have been fantasizing about it. Nishi was imagining this whole day with his 3 kid fans who are desperate to please him.
Mm.
And Jan was dreaming of winning art awards and performing. They were having all of this, but yeah, I mean, I get it. You want to get out of the whale, right? You don't want to stay there forever.
I mean, I think what they're trying to say, though, what I took away from it was that you can get what you want, but you always want more.
I could see that, but I think that part of it is creating art just for yourself has a ceiling to its enjoyment, whereas sharing it with others is what they really want to do. You can pursue it on your own, and you can strive for greatness, but until you really share it with the world, it's just for you. All of their fantasies seem to be about wanting a fan reaction or wanting other people to experience what they are creating.
Yeah.
And so I think that would be part of it. Do we want to talk about the comic swimming contest where Mian is representing Earth and they're swimming through the air against aliens?
Yeah, I love the bit when they go through the tunnel and say, okay, cameras are off, and then everyone's punching out of each other, and everyone's punching each other. She's got a bloody nose and stuff, but when they get out of the tunnel, it's all back to the normal racing again. It's pretty funny. But I have no idea what that's even about, that whole thing.
I think it's just, again, fantasy and wanting to be part of the world. There was that whole story that Nishi told about the people who survived. They went to space to find more food, and then they had to live off of the poop of some animal, and some other giant creature wanted the poop, and they had to fight for it.
Yeah, poop stories, man. Poop doesn't do it for me.
Okay. I was waiting for you to say this was the key scene in the film for you, that you loved it so much. I mean, it's interesting, but does it fit in the story? There are just so many things in this that are just so disparate, so different.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all up for something that's bizarre and weird and random, but I don't know, there's a certain type of random. I've got my limit, I've got my kind of cap on randomness. And some of it went a bit too far, and it was just like, you're just throwing in things now that just don't seem to work. Not just in this movie, but in other movies like it. Even in my games that I play, you know, I like to play really weird, tripped out games as well. Yeah, there's some parts of this that are just like, nah. When they're running through the whale, when they're getting through the tsunami, that's all. I love that part. And there's some really bananas bits in that. Like, what the hell is it?
They all lose their clothes at some point. Yeah. There's a part where Nishi is trying to save Gramps, and Gramps falls back, but then again, the tiny Loch Ness monsters to save them.
They're running, like, through a building at one point. There's a building inside the whale. Okay.
Yeah, that's crazy. They build up to that. I do like that they at least put a little thought into this of, well, we are going to row and we're going to practice and practice, but even that's not good enough. We need to build a motor for our boat. But when they say that's not good enough, and they're remembering back to their biology lesson of some creature that can walk on the surface tension of the water, and so they can all run on the surface tension of the water.
The water striders, yeah.
You're going a little far.
The hairs on their feet make them the surface tension. They can walk on the surface tension.
Well, like, how hairy are your feet?
You don't have hairy feet. So it's like, yeah, you got this whole montage like of them training, and they're all determined now to get out of the whale, and they've got motorboats that they can attach to the rowing boat. I thought it was going to be like an Inside Out kind of moment where they're all rowing and rowing and rowing, but they can't get over, so I thought Gramps was just going to jump out and sacrifice himself to let them through. I'm kind of glad that they didn't do that. Not that they would have been copying, because I think Inside Out came way after this. But I was going to see, did Inside Out copy this, maybe? Yeah.
I don't think that I would say that in any way.
Oh, man. What? Copying other animation ideas? Like, yeah, why not? What's the problem?
Because I've seen Inside Out, and this movie is nothing like it. But before you even get to the office that you mentioned earlier, there's just a giant tanker, a jet. Yeah, they're running into... Yeah,
he's running up the side of the airplane. Yeah, I mean, I get a boat. Okay, the whale swallowed an oil tanker, but it looks like the whale swallowed a 747, an entire fully stocked office building, like with tables, chairs, coffee machines. There comes a point where they're actually running just through matter, like there's just like molecules. They're running through actual fabric of the universe. It's pretty cool.
We're gonna cut then to city shots. We're gonna see time passing quickly, which I put possible futures ?
Yeah.
There's a couple moving in, but again, part of the problem here of the different art styles is that I'm not sure who these characters are necessarily meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of them are possibly meant to be Mian and Nishi.
I think so.
But they don't look like them as we've ever seen them up until now.
Right.
So that makes it very confusing to know what's going on. So if that's important to them, this was a bad judgment call.
Yeah, I actually didn't even know when I was watching it. I was like, yeah, these are just like random people.
It felt like it, and there are times where the movie does random stuff. So how would we know?
Yeah.
We're going to focus on Gramps, and he's got on the time reverse belt, which I'm assuming is related to the story he told about he was going to do a big drug deal or something. He took the wrong comic case. It must have had this belt in it,
right?
Which would have been his son's toy belt.
Yeah, his cosplay toy or something like that.
It reverses time, so we're now back to the very beginning of the movie. Atsu and his partner are in the car in the rain, but this time, as Mian runs, she actually makes it into the subway. As we see a cell phone, there's like a text going out saying, the story has never been to the end. And because she made it, Atsu doesn't, so that whole thing changes. That whole bit in the whale apparently never exists now. We see a mind game title card, a huge montage with some of the clips from the first major montage and some new ones. In this one, I did notice that there was a baby from the first one, and this time I noticed because of the darkness under the eyes that it must be the Yakuza boss. So there's a lot more kind of the Yakuza boss that's mixed in here for some reason. We see more shots of the kids as they're growing up. And then at the end, we see Gramps in the boat again. And the title card comes up again. And then another one that says, "This story has never ended."
Yeah.
And apparently will never end because it will just keep going and going and going. But this is part of why I get frustrated. Well, then, was there ever a story in the first place? Like, it just feels like they gave me the first one, and then they did a very rushed second one. And basically, if they're going to just keep changing time and what happens all the time, then none of what I saw really matters or has any weight to it. And that's part of what really frustrates me. It's like when a series retcons a whole season. We'll say, oh, that whole season was a dream, or something like that. I do not like that.
But that's different. That's completely different, though.
Okay, why would that be different?
Because in that case, they are plot driven, and they're giving you a story, and you're building up the story, and then they're taking it away from you. I can get it. It's like the big thing in the 80s when, like, oh, JR shot whatever his name was, and it was all a dream. What was it? No, somebody bought...
JR was
shot, that's right. JR shot somebody.
I mean, maybe he did. I didn't watch Dallas. That wasn't my thing.
I didn't watch Dallas. My parents did. But I remember the big... What was the...
Who shot JR?
Yeah, who shot JR? Yeah. Nobody. Because it was all a dream. And everyone was like, really?
Major spoilers for all of Dallas. But...
Yeah. So when there's a plot-driven story and then they remove it from you, yeah, of course. It's like, yeah, that's rubbish. But this is not a plot-driven story. It's an experience. It's about these themes. There's no real plot. So when it goes back and just goes into a time loop, or this thing's never happens, everything's now changed, and it will keep changing forever. It is what it is. That's it. It's not a plot-driven story. So there's no plot to remove from me. I was not upset with the movie because there was no plot.
Well, your whole part in the whale didn't happen then.
It maybe not. Well, it didn't. It actually didn't happen.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. But it did, because I saw it and I was there. So it did happen. I got to see that. They don't get to see that. And that's cool. I got to experience something and see something that they will never. I got to see behind the curtain. And that's why I love that. I love that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
If you've listened to this and you didn't watch it and you want to watch it now, more power to you. I think that there are a lot of people with such a high Rotten Tomatoes score from the audience. There are a lot of people that like it. And obviously this was recommended to us. It's just not my kind of movie. And I don't think it will ever be my kind of movie. However, you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, have you seen... I don't know if Waking Life is a good comparison. Maybe animation-wise, for some parts, Waking Life is really... It's an interesting movie, an animated movie about philosophy, I guess. They talk to different professors. It's, inverted commas, deep movie, I guess, where they discuss different philosophies from different university professors. But it's all done this really weird, wishy-washy animation and very shaky cam, like Scanner Darkly kind of animation. Not for people that get motion sickness, for sure. But yeah, like that, or like you said,
it's funny you say that, because Scanner Darkly is what I was thinking of when we saw the God scene in this one.
Right.
The constant changing. I was very harsh on a Scanner Darkly the first time I watched it. The second time, when I finally went back and watched it again, there was a lot more to it. I think I just wanted them to be more exploratory with what they could do with animation. But after having watching this movie, maybe I'm glad that they didn't go as far as they could have, because this movie for me goes too far.
And like you said, I didn't know that they had a hand in the animatrix, and that makes a lot of sense as well, because definitely you can see that in this movie. So yeah, thanks for the recommendation. I liked it. So
feel free to give us more.
Yeah, man, definitely. More. I need more of this, for sure.
I don't need more of this, but feel free to give us more of something else.
Gaps filled and more gaps created.
Next time. Today we're going to discuss a game called The Paynes Creek Killings. And this is fantastic, because there are a number of things in the game that you think you can open. It seems like you can open every door in the game, and then you're going to find out, no, you really can't.
That's what I would have said. I think I wrote that in my notes. I said it's a giant escape room. Rather than an escape room, this is an escape town.
I will warn you this, if you've not played it and you're about to play it, It's not quite as big as it feels when you first jump into it.
Please just let him be it, and then that'll be the twist. Like, oh, we said it was him, but you didn't think it was. But
all this and more on the next episode of Filling in the Gaps. I'm not gonna play that because we can't spoil the whole Inside Out as well.
Oh yeah, just delete all that. Right, it's got nothing to do with Inside Out. And I don't even know why I'm talking about it because no one's ever going to hear this. So, bleep 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 bleeps.